related, but at the same time slightly different, which is obviously the cost of living crisis, which we just heard about there. Clearly, we are in serious trouble in terms of inflation, now running at over 9%. We believe it's going to go higher to something like 11%. And then there was a headline that just struck me and dumbfounded me this morning, and that is that supermarkets are adding security tags to packets of Lurpak butter. Now, remember, security tags are normally used for high-price items, but clearly people are really struggling and they're nervous that people are going to take this butter and run off with it. Now, the average price for this butter has rocketed. So a 1 kilogram tub has now reached more than £9. And I want to know, how on earth are people going to afford to live? How on earth can they afford to cook? And Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, has previously warned of apocalyptic food price rises. Obviously, the war in Ukraine hasn't helped that, of course, with the supply of wheat and cooking oil supply chains. And the latest is that we believe that the cost of living is going to rocket exponentially. We also heard the Bank of England saying they're going to do everything they can to control inflation. So for me, that means they're going to increase interest rates dramatically. And when they do that, and I was alive when that last happened, people lost their houses and it was complete carnage. Joining me now, Dr. Roger Gewolb, who is CEO of Fair Money, personal finance expert. Gewolb, very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Good afternoon, David. It's Gewolb, actually.
Gewolb, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Not at all, not at all.
It's really kind of you to join me, but clearly we have a cost of living crisis. People are really struggling, and the signs from the Bank of England and indeed the supermarkets, they're responding in kind. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think that Terry from Portsmouth has it absolutely right. For most of the country, watching everything going on right now is kind of like reality TV. I mean, people really don't care about this politicking power parade going on, and they want somebody to help them. The price of butter is an example. Supermarket wars between supermarkets and their suppliers have always gone on for many decades, usually behind doors, but they've now gone public. So Tesco, which is huge, is trying to tell consumers that they want to keep prices low and help them during the crisis, so they are not passing on the price increases demanded by Mars, that makes Whiskas for cats, or by Kraft Heinz, baked beans, ketchup, etc. And they have stopped, Mars has stopped deliveries of those.
Can I just stop you just to say Mark Fletcher, the parliamentary private secretary, has also resigned. So I'm just looking at the number. The 33 now have resigned from government. So this is clearly an unfolding crisis. Sorry, I interrupted your flow of thought, but absolutely.
Not at all. They're all part of the same thing. This should not be going on. I'm an amateur political commentator and a professional personal finance and credit specialist, but I mean, this is the last thing we need at this time.
Absolutely.
I'm also opposed to interest rate rises. We have a cost push inflation situation, not a demand pull. Demand pull is when Dr. David Bull goes to the most expensive hotel, takes his partner and his friends and everybody for the wildest meal because there's so much money flowing around. It needs to be stopped. Raise interest rates, people will spend less. When you have cost push, which is not consumer demand, but outside factors, wheat, Ukraine war, materials, microchips, everything costing more, the consumer is not spending. They're not causing it. The last thing you do is make somebody who doesn't want to borrow money go out and pay more to borrow what they need to survive. And you also don't have them have their mortgage bills increased. Now, we are receiving reports of people's monthly mortgage payment almost doubling since the interest rate rise. And the government should do something about that, because that's a whole lot more than the interest rates were increased.
Well, absolutely. And of course, people are scrabbling around to try and fix their mortgages. I know I've just fixed mine and it doubled. It doubled already. And of course, yeah, it doubled. And obviously that is a huge problem in terms of trying to service that debt. And of course, now we're seeing, and I think we will see interest rates rise. But for you, would you then say that actually the way out of this is to cut taxes deep and hard and allow people to have more money in their pocket so they can spend it?
I've been saying on numerous programs on Talk TV and elsewhere for quite some time that there are several very simple things that the government could and should be doing. The first thing is certainly not to raise interest rates. The Bank of England should not have raised interest rates. That's just crazy. Secondly, there should be legislation with penalties. The bankers never seem to get penalized for anything, including the financial crisis credit crunch of 10 years ago. Any banker that doubles Dr. David Bull's mortgage rate when the increase in interest rates went up by only a tiny fraction of that should be stopped from doing that. That should be a law enacted tomorrow morning, please.
Absolutely.
Number two, the VAT on petrol and diesel, David, should be suspended at least for 6 months. Now, on a £1.80, can't find that anymore, but on a £1.80 liter of petrol, 52.9% goes in government fuel duty tax. Another 30% goes in VAT. And that VAT isn't just on the petrol, it's on the ruddy tax. So we're being gouged for tax on tax. And it's actually a triple threat, because if you think about it, the pounds with which you paid at the pump, you've paid PAYE or income tax on. So they're gouging us 3 times on petrol. They could drop the price of petrol so people can get to work and see their families. Again, tomorrow before lunchtime, with a pencil, nothing. They could do it tomorrow,
Yep.
and at least that would ease the burden. Number 2, they need to enforce it. Rishi Sunak's ridiculous 5p on petrol, which didn't even touch the sides, we ran a survey which showed that 82% of people could not find a petrol station in their neighborhood that had passed on that reduction.
Indeed.
There's no enforcement, no nothing. They need to have enforcement on that drop so that forecourts that don't pass it on get penalized by fines, even jail, whatever. Number 2, same thing on home energy bills. Take the VAT off, for goodness sake. You're gouging us. Take it off for 6 months. At least give people a breather. I never imagined, I used to live in Paris. I never imagined we would see a French-style motorway blockade stoppage in this country. And if Nadhim Zahawi, who looks to me like a good choice for chancellor, and I hope he lives up to his image, if he doesn't do something soon, I think this is going to get worse, coupled by the summer of huge discontent that we're promised from every service provider except perhaps funeral directors and the tax collector.
And of course, you make a very valid point here, which is that as, of course, the price of fuel goes up, of course, the revenue that the Exchequer gets goes up as well. So, in fact, there is fiscal headroom to do exactly what you're saying. And I do not understand, when you've seen other European countries doing it, such as Germany, for example, 17p and so on, why on earth has the government not done that?
Why, indeed? And a large part of it is because they are look, I'm sure, I know many of them very well. I'm sure these are normal people when they get home pretty much most of the time, but they live in this Westminster bubble, and they are now so engaged for their lives in these battles going on that we watch, as I say, as reality TV because it's amusing, but really nobody cares.
Yeah.
The people they're supposed to be serving don't give a damn, I'm afraid.
No, and of course the appointment of Nadhim Zahawi is very interesting for lots of reasons, but of course Rishi Sunak didn't want to cut taxes. I think Nadhim Zahawi was given that job on the premise that he would cut taxes. Now, obviously Boris Johnson fighting for his political life, and I think if he does cut tax, which I would favour, does that actually help his chances?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is just so unnecessary. This is not the time you change a leader. This is not the time you have a government fall apart.
Exactly.
So that, Keir Starmer can take some more shots but not come up with any solutions.
Well, quite. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. That's Dr. Roger Gewolb there, CEO of Fair Money Personal Finance. I mean, really unbelievable scenes, and we'll see what happens in terms of the new appointment, whether the government does believe that actually tax cuts are the right way to go. Obviously, Boris Johnson fighting for his political life.